It's amazing that the Yu-Gi-Oh TCG doesn't have trust issues whenever Konami releases a new TCG exclusive archetype, when the ratio of good exclusives have been almost 1 in every million. For some reason, we heard Dark and Pyro-typed monsters and assumed something good was going to happen. Yet, here you are again, about to enjoy another failed cards and mechanics video. Welcome to a series where we explain archetypes that failed to run in the TCG. And this week, we give you Ashened. Ashen's story begins with its debut in the TCG set Phantom Nightmare, and a hype video created by Konami to explain the archetype. They started with the two cards that the strategy is based on: Vados, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction, and Obsidian, the Ashen City. Vados was a level 9 Dark Pyro with 2800 attack and 1500 defense. During the main phase, if this card is in your hand, its quick effect lets you target one card in the field zone, special summon this card to your opponent's field, and if you do, destroy that card. Then you can add to your hand or set one Ashened continuous trap from your deck. If this card is sent from your opponent's field to your graveyard, you can destroy all monsters on the field. Obsidian was a field spell that made face-up special summon monsters your opponent controls become Pyro-type during your turn only. During your end phase, you can target an Obsidian, the Ashen City, in your graveyard, place it on the bottom of your deck, and then draw one card. If this card in the field zone is destroyed or banished, you can special summon one Ashened monster from your deck. Both of these effects are hard once per turn. The game plan was laid out simply with these two cards. Play your field spell, get Vados to your opponent's side of the field, then pop Vados to cause a board wipe. To assist with this goal, Konami introduced 3 other monsters to help out with that goal in mind, and all of them were Dark Pyro and could be special summoned if Obsidian, the Ashen City, was in the field zone. King of the Ashen City was a level 8 with 1400 attack and 2700 defense. Once per turn during your main phase, you can special summon an Ashen monster from your hand, except King of the Ashen City. Or if your opponent controls a monster with 2800 or more attack, you can special summon it from your deck instead. Hero of the Ashen City was a level 7 with 2600 attack and 2100 defense. Once per turn, during the main phase, its quick effect lets you target one Pyro monster on the field and destroy it. If you destroy Vados with this effect, you can place one Obsidian, the Ashen City, from your deck face up into your field zone. Finally, Priestess of the Ashen City is a level 4 with 1200 attack and 1300 defense. Once per turn, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Ashen card from your deck to your hand, except Priestess. Besides Obsidian, there are 2 other cards for Ashen spell and trap card support. Awakening of Vados is a quick play spell card that places one Obsidian, the Ashen City, from your deck face up in either field zone. Then, if your opponent controls a card in their field zone, you can add a level 5 or higher Dark Pyro monster from your deck to your hand. For the rest of this turn, after the card resolves, you can't special summon from the deck or extra deck except for Pyro-type monsters. Ashen for Eternity was their continuous trap. That, when activated, lets you add one Vados, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction, or an Ashen monster from your graveyard to your hand. It also lets you target one face-up monster your opponent controls that you own, and take control of that monster. Then you can make all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls lose attack equal to the targeted monster's original attack. This attack change lasts until the end of the turn. Ashen got a good round of support that made it look interesting. Priestess for searching, King for bringing bodies to the board, and Hero to pop monsters when needed, including Vados. Awakening of Vados was another searcher, and Eternity was there. The gameplay was there, however, and very straightforward, and boosted by the fact that Pyro and Dark support could be utilized in this deck with cards like Bonfire and Allure of Darkness for search power. Unfortunately, for all of those benefits, there were even more holes for the archetype to fill. One of the many holes was that the issue started off with the archetype's gameplay. As great as it sounds to be able to wipe the board by getting rid of Vados, this also meant monsters on your side of the field would get destroyed as well. This archetype has no protection whatsoever. Destruction, banishment, bounce to the hand, shuffling to the deck, and even being flipped face down are detrimental to the gameplay, because there's no way to stop any of that from happening. There's also the issue with how vital Obsidian is to the board. From special summoning the Ashened monsters to letting Vados destroy it, Obsidian was a must-have card for you to even play the deck, and it isn't even that great of a card, only allowing you to turn special summon monsters your opponent controls into Pyro and recycling copies of itself for a draw 1, and special summoning an Ashen monster when it's destroyed. Besides that, it pretty much did nothing if left on the field. Unfortunately, without Obsidian, it would be nearly impossible for you to summon any monster outside of Priestess since she's level 4. Everyone else is level 7 and higher, and depends on their special summon inherent effect to see the field. Oh, and just to make this video's inheritable summons even more egregious, it can be ashed because its summon also lets you search an Ashened continuous trap card when you attempt to special summon it. The woes don't stop there. King can only give you full-blown benefits if your opponent controls a monster with 2800 attack, aka Vados. This made it more dependent on what your opponent had, which made it a more second-oriented than going first, unless you gave them Vados. That's if you don't get hit with an interruption going first or second. Even if you pulled all of that off for all of your hard work, you'd get one terribly gimmick interruption where it's self-destructed both players' fields, and you'd have to hope that it'd be enough to slow down your opponent. Plus, you couldn't follow up because your board wouldn't have any follow-up due to the archetype's focus on needing Vados. So, while you get the Dark Souls Pompey-esque experience, your record in any tournament where you played Ashen would get that experience as well. Too many holes were in the first batch of support. Oh, and Awakening of Vados is unsearchable because, of course it is. All the TCG could do was wait to see if the problem would be fixed. And guess what? It wasn't. Legacy of Destruction would introduce Ashen's next and currently last amount of support, giving it extra deck monsters to extend the archetype's gameplay in an attempt to give it another win con. For the main deck, they got Shaman and Spearhead of the Ashen City, and they retained the gimmick of being able to special summon when Obsidian is in the field zone. Shaman is a level 4 with 1300 attack and 1200 defense. You can target 3 of your power monsters that are banished and or in your graveyard and shuffle them into your deck. If you shuffle an Ashen monster, you can add 1 Obsidian the Ashen City from your deck to your hand. Spearhead was another level 4 with 1700 attack and 100 defense. Spearhead lets you tribute the card that target 1 card your opponent controls, return it to the hand if your opponent controls a monster with 2800 attack. Now for the new extra deck additions. Starting with Embers of the Ashen City. The level 8 Pyro had 2800 attack and 2400 defense, needing 2 Pyro monsters for its fusion. If this card is fusion summoned, you can target a field spell in your graveyard and add it to your hand. At the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's Pyro monster, you can destroy that opponent's monster, and if it's your turn, you can make a second attack in a row. Both of these were hard once per turn effects. The second was Vados, the Dragon of Endless Darkness. This level 10 Pyro with 3000 attack and 1700 defense took 1 Vados, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction, plus 2 level 9 or lower Pyro monsters. It couldn't be destroyed by card effects, and your opponent couldn't target it with card effects. If this card is fusion summoned, you can destroy all spell and traps your opponent controls. When your opponent activates a card or effect on the field, with its quick effect, you can send a face-up Ashen card you control to the graveyard to destroy that card. Extinguishing the Ashen is a normal spell that sends 1 Dark Pyro from your deck to the graveyard. You can then add 1 level 5 or higher Pyro monster from your graveyard to your hand. For the rest of the turn, after the card resolves, you cannot special summon from the extra deck except for Pyros. You can banish the card from your graveyard to fusion summon 1 Pyro fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand or field as materials. Rekindling the Ashen is a quick play spell that places 1 of your Ashen cards that is banished or in your graveyard on the bottom of your main deck, except Rekindling the Ashen, to then target 1 effect monster your opponent controls to negate its effects until the end of this turn. Inferno of the Ashen is a continuous spell that, when activated, you can place 1 Obsidian the Ashen City from your deck face up in either field zone. Its second effect lets you target 1 face-up card your opponent controls and 1 level 8 or higher Dark Pyro monster in your graveyard. Send that card on the field to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon that other monster from your graveyard to your opponent's field in defense position. The final piece of support is the trap card Ashen to the Endless. This continuous trap allows you to fusion summon 1 Pyro fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from either field as materials, including Vados, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction. And if you do, it gains 500 attack for each material used. You can also banish this card and 1 Dark Pyro from your graveyard to make all monsters your opponent control become Pyro until the end of this turn. Analysis. The new support gave Ashen something to do, another way to get Vados off the field, and a boss monster that was essentially a towers. Ember's battle effect comboed with the field spell and Endless's graveyard effect to help get rid of pesky monsters your opponent had, alongside a recovery effect to add back an Ashen card to the hand. Shaman was also more helpful in recovering your monsters and searching for Obsidian. With all of these new cards, there was only one way to sum up all the new support, and that word would be mid. You see, with all the support they got, it also came with some drawbacks. Extinguish could get you nearly any Ashen monster. Nearly! The monster had to be a level 5 or higher Pyro, which left you with no way to get your level 4s if you needed them. It also locked you into only summoning Pyro monsters from the extra deck, which by itself is a very small and niche pool. Outside of cards like Infernal Flame Banshee and the Ashen boss monsters, there's nothing else that would benefit Ashen in their gameplay or even be playable in it. Speaking of their boss monsters, they were just as underwhelming options. Embers was near useless on the first turn. Another card depended on Obsidian or any type changing effect for its effects to be useful, and was only good for running over Vados for the board wipe. The Vados fusion was only great for being able to not be destroyed or targeted. It only wiped out your opponent's back row, which in this day and age in Yu-Gi-Oh is barely a hazard to any decks that rarely set heavy back row. Not only that, Dragon of the Endless was meant to be a turn 2 interruption to combo with your Vados board wipe to leave your opponent with nothing, but this didn't stop the board wipe from being easy to bait out. Its quick effect also left a lot to be desired. Popping a card in response to its activation, that's great for responding to continuous or field spells, but terrible for almost everything else. Ashen of the Endless had its issues too. You can only use monsters on the field as fusion materials, and one of them had to be Vados. This made it difficult to bring out fusions when you needed them, and limited your options, which in this case most likely made the Vados fusion the only fusion you could make safely with this. Also, what good is the graveyard effect for it if it's on a continuous trap? Any player would just leave this card alone or use another method to get rid of it. Shaman needed you to have 3 targets to recycle to use its effect, and the payoff was to only get Obsidian, who had more options to search it than even Vados, your main winning condition. Spearhead was useless and doesn't need much explanation outside of the card's effect not being a quick effect. Rekindling seemed to be the only card worth giving a go since it was a quick play negate, but even that was limited since it could only negate monsters on the field. Also, none of the previous problems were solved. No protection from hand traps, no protection from destruction, shuffling, bouncing, or being slandered. Nothing. All it got was more problems and more restrictions with its new support. Since then, nothing has really changed with Ashen. The weak board wipe, non-protection, and lackluster monsters have hindered the archetype. However, they did get 2 cards which were non-direct support for the archetype. One of them even helped spruce up Tistina. Chaotic Elements was a spell card that added 1 level 5 or higher light/dark Pyro/Aqua monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Then, if you have 3 or more Pyro and or Aqua monsters in your graveyard, you can destroy 1 card on the field. If your opponent controls a light/dark Pyro/Aqua monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Then, target 1 monster your opponent controls, take control of it until the end phase. The second card was Queen of the Blazing Domain, a level 9 Dark Pyro with 3000 attack and 2500 defense. With her blue eye stats, Queen couldn't be destroyed by card effects. If Queen is in your hand, you can target up to 2 cards you control, including a face-up spell or trap card, destroy them, and if you do, special summon this card. If you destroy 1 card, return her to the hand during the end phase of the next turn. Or if you destroy 2, this card gains the effect to banish any monsters sent from your opponent's field to the graveyard instead. Analysis. Getting a pseudo bonfire is a great bonus for the archetype. Chaotic Elements helped search for any level 5 or higher monster that you needed and was live on the second turn, as it could pop any card on the field, including Vados if your opponent controls it. It can also snatch a monster in your opponent's field if it was a light or dark Pyro or Aqua for use. Queen was placed in Ashen for a plethora of reasons. Its type, level, and attribute made it not only searchable through Chaotic Elements, but also for Extinguish and Awakening of Vados, giving you nearly 9 ways to dig for it. It was also indestructible by card effects and could survive the board nuke of Vados. The real benefit was that you had a playable floodgate that banished your opponent's monsters when they left the field, stopping resources from hitting their graveyard. With so many cards and archetypes being able to use their graveyard for utility, Queen of the Blazing Domain's ability was a must-have that could help Ashen in its slow grind game. Unfortunately, it didn't help Ashen become an actual good deck. It still ate hand traps like no tomorrow, saw decks walk through its board wipe, bricked, and had lackluster monsters, couldn't end the game consistently, and all the other problems that plagued the deck since day one. Ashen just lacked too much to be taken seriously. And this is, unfortunately, the fate for most TCG exclusives. Hype by our Konami overlords. A deck with a cool premise and artwork, only to then be debilitated by flaws that stop it from having any chance of competitive success, or even being lucky to see Rogue. You can't even argue that it didn't come at the right time, due to the support being made for Pyro and the lengthy support Dark attributes had. The deck was just too bad at building a solid game plan and great at shooting itself in the foot. Want to get your boss monster with Awakening at the cost of being locked into the niche Pyro monsters? How about getting locked into mediocre fusion Pyros while you take a long route to get the card with Extinguish? Best of all, why not do a board wipe that takes out not only your opponent, but you as well since you have no protection from it. This archetype had many issues. Then watched its support hit it with many restrictions, and today its best cards are 2 non-support cards. There's always hope for a deck or an archetype to get better, or in this case, wait until one card is plastered with every effect the archetype needed and placed in a deck as a legacy support. Ashen is currently destined for this route and destined to be part of the Hall of Fail. Ashen's time has not faded out.